Hello and welcome, guys. I'm going to be talking about the UFC Fight Night, Dawson versus Green. I'm only going to be talking about the main card. I will be spending a little bit more time depending on the fighter and depending on the matchup. Some of them, it's for me, my opinion, it's more of a pick 'em. I can't really say, but there are some interesting matchups that I'll probably spend a little bit more time on. I think the co-main and the main event are probably the two that I'll spend the most time on. But let's start at featherweight. We have Alexander Hernandez versus Bill Algeo. I think I don't like as fighters get older. This is just a general rule of thumb. Like I'm just saying it. It could be different. You know what I mean, for each person. And there have been some cases where this isn't the case. But generally, I don't like people dropping weight as they get older. He had good fights. He looked all right at times at a lightweight, and I don't like him at featherweight. I don't really like Hernandez at heavyweight as much. I think that it affects his cardio. I don't think that he performs to the best of his ability at that weight. So just on that alone, I can't really see myself picking Alex. I don't want to spend too much time on each guy. I've got a habit of talking too much. Ironically, it is a podcast, but yeah, still. Bill Algeo, I don't have huge amounts of faith in either, to be fair. Like over Hernandez, I don't mean that as an insult. I just think it'll be relatively like close fight to a point. But I do think that unless Hernandez can finish him earlier, I think that Algeo is going to be able to just pull away from him. That's my opinion. I think he's fit, and I think he's got a good understanding of grappling. He's able, I don't see Hernandez beating him. Hold on, I'm going to answer some of the questions. Nathan Gorman says, how will Green stop the takedown? Can he use anything in the Makhachev fight last year to help him? Like maybe stay in the center of the octagon instead of backing up? I mean, yes, he could do that. I don't think he was that successful. I think Bobby Green has moments if he can keep it standing. Whilst he can grapple, he's not a bad grappler. But I just don't. I see Dawson not being there to be hit as much, and I see Dawson being able to get the takedowns, and I see him being able to hold him down. So I do think that if anything, could even work against Bobby Green in that. I do think he'll probably be a little bit more hesitant, knowing that the guy that he's going to be fighting is going to be looking for takedowns and only looking for takedowns. Just a second, guys. So, yeah, I do think that can work against him. Madara Uchiha says, what did you think of Green's ground game against Ferguson? He shut Tony's offense down and did ground and pound himself. Yeah, I thought it was good, but I don't think that that's the same Tony Ferguson that we're looking at nowadays. You know what I mean? That Tony Ferguson, the one we're looking at nowadays, is not the same Tony Ferguson from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it is. I don't think that. So it was good, but I know that Bobby Green can wrestle. I know that he can grapple. And like I said, I don't think Tony Ferguson is the same Tony Ferguson. Mario Gomez says, how does a fight between Dawson and Islam go? I would like to see a fighter to go out and try and take Makhachev down, or at least attempt as Dawson would. Yeah, but no disrespect him, but I just think that in that scenario, that particular, I think someone like Gamrot has more of a chance to do that than Dawson. I think, and I could be completely wrong, but I just think that Makhachev's able to do everything Dawson does, but better. You know what I mean? I don't think that Dawson could do the things that he does, that he's done to like Mark Madsen, Jared Gordon, Damir Ismagulov. I don't see them being able to do that. Whilst Madsen's a very accomplished Greco-Roman wrestler, he hasn't really been able to put that together in the same way for MMA. So I don't see them. Yeah, I don't see him being able to do that to Islam in any shape, way, or form. I see Islam's just tidier, standing up on the ground everywhere. So no, I don't see Dawson being able. I think, like I said, I think someone like Dariush, someone like Gamrot can give Islam a good run. Even you saw that with Sarukian, you saw that with Volkanovski. There's certain matchups. I don't think Dawson is that kind of matchup against Islam. Then we have Felipe Lins versus Kudalaba. I don't like this matchup for Felipe Lins. One of the interesting things when you look at it, Felipe Lins is 38 years old, and you think Kudalaba is like super old, but he's not. He's 29 years old, and he's fought a lot of good guys, and I don't think if you can't keep Kudalaba off you early in the fight, and you don't have any significant advantages over him, I don't see you being able to stop Kudalaba from chinning you or hurting you really badly in that first round. So I don't think there's a lot of odds, a lot of things in Felipe's favor in that particular fight. I'm just going to go through the picks real quick, and then I'll answer the questions in that. Drew Dober versus Ricky Glenn. I have Drew Dober on this one. I just think that I can't really tell you why. You know what I mean? I just think that he has a loss. The last loss, was recently against Matt Frivola. But I just think overall he's just a better bet. It's just a better bet of money. I don't think I can't really sit there and go. I think Ricky Glenn's very good as well. But if I'm going to pick, I'm going to pick Drew Dober out of the two. There's not a huge reason as to why that is. We can revisit that later. But I pick Drew Dober. Alex Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. I pick Joaquin Buckley. I don't see Alex Morono having, again, like I said, I don't see him having a significant advantage over Buckley. I don't see him being able to take Buckley down and control him. I think Buckley's done well against some of the bigger middleweights. I think he's a big boy at welterweight. I think he hits hard. I don't see him I think I was impressed even when he fought. It was a loss, and it was a clear loss. But when he fought Imavov's a big guy, is a true middleweight. And Joaquin was able to stay towards the end of the fight. He was able to come back and, so throw some big bombs and try and finish that fight. But I don't see that happening. Like, I don't see Alex Morono being able to do what Imavov did to him. So, and I don't see him chinning Buckley either. Pfeiffer versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. I think on every metric, the advantage is to Pfeiffer, in my opinion. I think early in the fight, though, like in the first round kind of thing, I see it being a 50-50 fight. Like, not even in the first round, but early on, I see it being a 50-50 fight just because of the amount of power that Abdul Razak Al Hassan has early in the fight. But anything short of him landing something and chinning Pfeiffer, I don't see him winning this fight. I think that Pfeiffer has the grappling ability, the wrestling ability to be able to take Al Hassan down. And Al Hassan, whilst he's a good and accomplished judoka, doesn't have the best wrestling defense. He's not, and I do think that I've seen him get out wrestled by just other guys, in that division, Malkoun, Muniz. I just don't see him being able to stop Pfeiffer wrestling him if Pfeiffer wanted to wrestle him. And Pfeiffer's a very, very good grappler, wrestler, and jiu-jitsu practitioner. And then boxing, I actually think that Pfeiffer's got the tidier boxing. He's got the height and the length on him, and he's just got the momentum, and he's much younger, So I don't, he's legit 6'2". He's a big boy. He's very strong, young guy, momentum on his side. I don't see anything other than a Pfeiffer win. It might not be by a knockout, though. Early in the fight could be a Hassan. Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. But when I say this, I do think that there is an avenue for El Hassan to win. I definitely do think that there is that available. And that will be early in the fight by knockout. Other than that, it's not going to happen. Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson. I think Grant Dawson is going to do a version of what Islam did with Bobby Green, a version of it. I'm not saying he's going to do exactly that, but there'll be a version of it. And I don't think Bobby Green's going to be able to stop it. I'm a big fan of Bobby Green. I'd actually hope he gets it done, but I don't think he will. So they're my picks real quick. And now we can answer questions and have a chat, gentlemen and ladies, if there is any ladies on the show. Yeah, I think Mario Gomez, going back to what you said, I think that for someone to do that, it's more like a Gamrot type of cat or a Sarukian type of cat that's going to be able to impose their grappling and put Islam on his back. I do agree though that it's going to be interesting to see someone that can do that can put him on his back and hold him there and impose that kind of threat to Islam. It'll be very, very interesting. But it'd have to be someone like that, like a Gamrot or a Sarukian off the top of my head in that division. Or someone that can nullify the takedowns and pose a threat like Charles or Darius, you know what I mean? Those types of cats, and then have good stand-up to go along with it. So they're the interesting matchups for Islam. I think Islam will probably win, but I think Charles is much more dangerous than people give him credit for. He had a lot of very good moments in that fight against Islam. Who knows how that would have gone if it had played out differently, if Islam hadn't caught him with that hook. Pep Guard says, does Green need to use strikes down the center to deter Dawson's takedowns? If so, what are the pros and cons of strikes down the center? I think strikes down the center depends how you throw them. I think a big thing to throw are the teeps and front kicks, like the karate style front kicks and the teeps down the center. They're very, very good for anyone, but in particular against the grappler, because it doesn't let them close the distance and they don't want to run into that front kick. You don't want to throw like shit teeps down the middle, but well-timed teeps down the middle, front kicks down the middle that land, and a good place to land it is like just on the belly button, just below the belly button where the bladder is. You can't really take the shots there. You know, you can't. There's no real muscles that you're going to have that are going to be able to stop the impact of that, like it would like in the actual rectus abdominis region. So also being able to switch from to kick the open side. So by that I mean if I'm southpaw, I'll kick you with a front kick when you're orthodox, and vice versa. And Bobby Green has the ability to shift and change stances. And if he can throw those front kicks down the middle, which he doesn't really do, but if he does, you know, that can change the game a lot against Dawson. Death Note says, what do you make of Paddy versus Tony? I don't think it's a bad fight for Tony. It should be competitive. It's a young, strong guy with momentum that the UFC is trying to build. And you have an old veteran with a big name. This story, I'm afraid, has been done before, you know, so I don't pick Tony in that fight, unfortunately. It could happen. He could have that. But a win, I think Charles Sonnen said this, a win against Paddy is only going to give Tony 3 more losses, you know, like it's not either he loses against Paddy or he loses a bunch more. I think Paddy is a big, strong young man, and this is a young man's sport. I don't know that I'm on the hype train of Paddy Pimblett the way that some people are, but I think he beats Tony Ferguson and he does it handedly, I think. Jordan Martinez says, the UFC announced big fights last week. What did you think of some of the matchups? For example, Bilal seems the off one out without a matchup except for Kamaru. Tell me exactly which matchups you want to talk about so that I have something to work with, because it might not be the same matchups that we're thinking of. So tell me which ones exactly, Jordan. Let me see. Light says, why do Olympic wrestlers struggle to dominate in the UFC? For example, Yoel Romero and Madsen should destroy their opponents like Khabib did, but Yoel struggled in wrestling versus Rob and Madsen versus Grant. I do believe, I know for sure that when Yoel started MMA, he started pretty late. You know, a lot of these guys starting late. They're starting late in their career. They're older. They're not hitting their peak. Madsen's 39, man. You know what I mean? So I don't know what these guys would have been like had they have started MMA at 24, 23, you know, like maybe Yoel, when I think he won the silver medal at the Sydney Olympics in 2000, so he might have been 22 or something. If he had started then, I don't know that. I think he would have probably won the belt, you know. Like if he had started MMA full pelt there and then, like won the silver medal, walked off the mats and started MMA, I think that I don't know that anyone at middleweight would have, especially in that particular period, would have handled a 28-year-old Yoel Romero with 6 years of proper MMA background. I think Yoel Romero would have been one of those cats, I think, that would have won like the silver medal at the Olympics, fucking ADCC, and the UFC belt. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that it's probably testament to how good athletes these guys are, that the guy's 39 years old in Madsen's case and doing really, really well. The other thing is wrestling's not fighting. Jiu-jitsu is not fighting. But you can get by to a certain extent on just being a really good athlete and being able to impose your style. But it's not fighting at the end of the day. So you can do well until you get a guy like, you know, a Rob or a Grant or someone that's actually is a fighter, you know. In fairness, like someone like Rob or someone like Israel or, you know, these at Volkanovski at their right weights or whatever would have done really, really well. Adesanya did really, really well at the right weight in the right sport in kickboxing. And so I think if Rob had grown up wrestling, he would have been a fucking fantastic wrestler. Like had he grown up in the US or in Cuba or something, he would have been all of that in wrestling as well. So there is that. Homeless in America says Sub-Fab Grant will dominate Green. I agree. Volk held him down and ground and pounded him, laugh out loud. Max Jamil says, what do you make of Khamzat changing his nationality from Chechnya to Sweden and now UAE? Are there any red flags in his changing his mind? I don't know why he did that though. Do you know what I mean? He might have had visa issues, you know what I mean? And if you're going to pick somewhere to fight out of, you're going to fight out of UAE. Like there's not, UFC doesn't have, like it's not a hub. Sweden's not a hub. Australia, you know, it's not a hub. Like if you could, if I could pick a country, if they said, hey dude, you can't travel, you can only pick this country, you'd pick the US, you know, and if you can't, because that's where all the fights are. And if it's not the US, it's probably going to be somewhere like the UAE or somewhere like that. For your visa, for probably tax purposes as well. There's probably a combination of those things. So I don't think it's just he turned his back on Sweden necessarily, you know. I don't know. I can't speculate as to that. So that's probably why, you know what I mean? And sometimes there are real factors to what people are doing. Not sometimes, like most of the time, there are factors outside of what we as the fans know or can guess. So I definitely think that's probably one of the big factors. And Chechnya, he would have fled Chechnya due to war, and you know, this is not that hard to understand. Sweden's a fantastic place to live. I have family in Sweden. I've been to Sweden. Yeah, and then if there's problems with him being able to fly or being able to travel or anything like that, and maybe tax benefits and whatnot, then yeah, I'll understand why he would. Homeless in America says, what do you think about people saying Gaethje versus Islam is a good fight? I think Islam gets him down and submits him in round one. Possibly, but the problem with Gaethje is that he whacks hard. You know what I mean? He's a very, like that fight, even the fight with Khabib, like there were some moments in there. I remember watching it live, and Khabib could have got knocked out. You know what I mean? At any stage in that fight as well. He's not an easy fight just because it lasted a short amount of time, and Khabib was able to do it with relative ease. But it was incredibly dangerous fight. Incredibly dangerous fight. He was throwing some big bombs in there. You know that at any stage, people don't get this. I think Khabib's Superman, and I'm a huge Khabib fan. But he can get. He's been wobbled before, and it could just been like the same way that happened with Islam and Adriano Martins. You just get caught and you're done. So Gaethje is definitely the guy that can just catch you. That's for sure. What are the odds of it? I don't know. I would bet, if I had to bet. I'm not a betting man, but if I had to bet, I'd bet on Islam. Nathan Gorman says Green doesn't telegraph his jab. He shoots him straight from the hip, so those could catch. Yes, they could, absolutely. You know, he's got elusive striking for sure. I just think that Dawson, it's, you know, he's very competent at what he does, and he's very good at what he does, and he's a young guy with a lot of momentum. Sufi Mir says, it might seem harsh, but I think Tony needs to continue to fight because he refuses to see his decline, and the only way to learn is to continue to get beaten until the message is synced in. Unfortunately, dude, there's probably a lot of factors as to why the guy's still fighting, and that doesn't necessarily get fixed like that, you know, because the problem is, man, you only see and know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So I don't know, like, I don't know what it's like. I don't know what people he has around him. I don't know what happened prior to it. I don't know. I just from a fighting perspective and a health perspective, I don't think it's. I think he should have not. He shouldn't have been fighting a long time ago for his health. You know what I mean? Now, I'm a little bit different because people go, "What if he wins?" But what if he? I think it doesn't fucking matter if he wins, dude. It's irrespective if he wins. Your body. This is something that I do not understand how people don't get this. Your body, your brain still continues to take a shit ton of fucking damage, irrespective of whether you win or not. You get to a point in your life where you're taking too much fucking damage. So that's what I think on that. Fumple Fimple says, okay, now I'm here. My net disconnected right after I said, yo, how are you, brother? Good to have you here. Mario Gomez says, what you made of Oliveira saying it's unfair to fight Islam in Abu Dhabi again, is he making excuses or does he have a valid point? I mean, he has a valid point. I don't know if it's unfair. Islam is the champion, you know. Islam is the champion, so he should be able to pick that, you know, or have some say in where he fights. I think that he fought, just to give you an example, he fought Volkanovski in Perth and he put his belt up. Volkanovski didn't have a belt. You know, I was going for Volkanovski, but I'm just telling you what it is. Like, Volkanovski didn't have his belt. It wasn't up for grabs. Volkanovski's belt was at home. So Islam put his belt up for no fucking reason, you know, to fight Volkanovski at home, you know, not in his hometown, but at home. And Perth, for those of you that don't know, is a fuckhead trip, you know. Even for people from Sydney, we're still flying 5 hours, you know. It's still the time difference. It still fucks with you. For someone to fly from wherever he's flying from, Dagestan or UAE or anywhere, you know, it's Perth is a nightmare, is an absolute nightmare. So UAE would be shit, Abu Dhabi would be shit, but to go there, I mean, to fight if you could help it, but he's the one that can pick it, you know what I mean? So Oliveira probably, yeah, like I know he's got a valid point that it'll be a pain in the ass compared to fighting in Vegas or something, but that's, and I like Oliveira, trained with Oliveira, but yeah, like, he's got a valid point. That doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Hassan Ahmed, the people's champ, just got back from the hospital, tore my ligament in my forearm and fractured a bone in my elbow, out for 6 weeks. How, Hassan? How? He just fell. Jesus, Hassan. Jesus, you need to go do judo or something and work on your break falls, Hassan. Pepgard says Tony gave a few interviews today saying he's not retiring is as good as ever and stuff like that. He keeps bringing up Khabib and refuses to let them go. Do you think not getting the title shot broke him? I can't speculate on what happened. You know, you got to understand, fighters have a life not only outside of fighting, but they had a life prior to hitting the limelight. So you carry that baggage of your whole life with you. Doesn't matter if you're a fighter or not. I just, irrespective of what he thinks, this is another thing. Like, sometimes when people go, he even said it himself. They ask the fighter, he even said it himself. It's like the fucking worst person to ask, man. It's like if I have an argument with my wife and then you go, who was right, Fab? And I say, me. And they go, look, you wouldn't say, there you go, Fab said himself he was right. I'm probably not in the right, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be the best person to ask. I'm not going to have the clearest picture of what's going on. So I definitely think that just on his age alone and just on the amount of damage that he's taken, it's not good for him. That's a medical, you know, when people politicize a scientific argument, it becomes fucking stupid. Like, just if you look at it medically, the damage that he has taken in his fucking career and the damage that he would take in training to his body and his head and his mind, everything, I don't think it's good for him. That's just me. Fumples Fimple says, Pep Guard, Ferguson literally just talks bullshit about his new amazing way to prepare for a fight is revolutionary. And then if he loses, he says, I didn't train for this fight at all. Who knows? Yeah. Max Jamil says Khabib's chin is unreal, but Makhachev doesn't have the same chin. If Gaethje lands those same punches, he KOs Makhachev. Makhachev does seem a little bit more wobbly than Khabib, but it doesn't matter how good your chin is, man. I remember the first time I saw Mark Hunt get knocked out, and if there's one person I thought could not get knocked out, it's Mark. But when Manhoef hit him, and he hit him flush on the fucking chin, he knocked him out, slept him. And Mark had been hit by like hard shots in his career. Some shots that should have killed him. But then he got chinned. He got landed right on that chin, and that was it when Manhoef did it. And I know Mark personally. Like, Mark has been like instrumental in my career, and that broke my fucking heart. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm saying to you. Like, when people go, Khabib can't be knocked out. No, anybody can be knocked out, dude. Anybody can be knocked out. It's just you got to get hit on the button that day, you know? Sorry, I'm skipping a few. Sufi Mir says, who are your top 3 best anti-wrestlers? Mine are Aldo, Whitaker, and Gustafsson. Yeah, I can't argue with that list. There'd be a few, though. Like, ever, there's probably, in my opinion, I don't know, man. St. Pierre's very, very fucking good. Are you talking about guys that aren't wrestlers that could wrestle? In fairness, though, Whitaker's competed in wrestling. Like, you know what I mean? He's competed like a fair bit in wrestling. So if that's a metric with which to use, then I don't know if you can put him in it, because he actually competed in wrestling. Didn't grow up wrestling per se, but he like competed in wrestling in that. But guys that are just like ridiculous to take down, there's a lot. Like, but they're wrestlers, I suppose. Fiziev is very hard to take down as well. Fiziev is very, very hard to take down. I watched him in that Gamrot fight, and Gamrot's a guy that's just going to keep wrestling, and he was very hard to take down. These are guys that are just coming up off the top of my head. John Jones never fucking gets taken down. Very rarely gets taken down. Death Note says, Tony missed out on big fights and big money, got screwed out of multiple title shots. The Khabib injuries, I feel bad for him. He didn't deserve this. All 2 things can be true at once. So all of that can be true. But also it's time. Do you know what I mean? It's done. Do you know what I mean? It's fucking done. Max Jamil says, what does Charles need to do different to beat Islam? Does he need to be less aggressive or have the same aggression like he always does? Again, dude, I think that people have massive revisionist history. I think that Charles had some really good moments in that fight. I don't think I was watching that fight live. You got to think as you're watching it live. And I was watching Islam get the better of all the grappling exchanges in as far as wrestling was concerned, getting him down. But on the ground, Charles was still a threat. He was a big threat. He had dangerous up kicks. The way he was able to wrestle up and throw that leg lock in the beginning of the fight. The problem with Charles is his, like I say, feast or famine. Like this fight could have gone different as well. Charles could have clipped Islam, and then everyone would be saying Islam was never that good. Charles could have caught Islam flush with one of those up kicks, and he did. He got him with a good up kick, and you see Islam kind of go limp a little bit, not limp, but enough. You know, so I don't necessarily believe that fight was that. Like, it wasn't like Islam took him down without hurting him and was all over him on the ground. This wasn't the case. Like, he was having. Charles was still throwing up a lot of offense from his back. But when he got clipped the way that he did, that's a big advantage to Islam. If Charles clipped Islam and jumped on his back and choked him, everyone would be saying the same thing. So I do think that he's got a very good chance. I just see that, like I said, there's more chance of, like, say, for example, Islam being able to wrestle his way to a decision. There's more chance of that. There's more chance of Islam's stand-up is tidy and it's underrated, and he's got heavy hands. You know, he's got good left high kick. He's got good left kick, period. So these things, I think, like X factors that people weren't 100% sure of with Islam. I think people are starting to see that Islam's stand-up is actually very good and it's tidy and he's got power in his hands. So I think Charles would probably address that a little bit differently. I just see that there's more ways for Islam to win. I don't see Charles being able to wrestle his way to a decision. I've seen people take Charles down and hold Charles down, and I think that Islam has that very clear path to victory. I think that stand up, it's not that easy for Islam. So I'm going to give that a kind of 50-50. They both hit hard, man. They both hit hard. So I don't know necessarily who would win that one. You know what I mean? Again, like I said, there's probably a clearer path for victory for Islam, but Charles is still a lot of weapons, man. He's still a very tricky customer. Don't underestimate Charles. Sufi Mir says, I remember when Krokop kicked Mark and he was getting up and my jaw dropped. Yeah, man. Fuck. Fucking hell. Mark Hunt was a fucking something out of a horror film. Homeless in America says Adesanya and Usman. I don't know what you mean by that. Nathan Gorman says, how would the striking go between O'Malley and Sandhagen? That's a good one, eh? I don't know, I think that even the grappling exchanges will be different because Sandhagen has shown they both can shoot, man. They both got nice takedowns, O'Malley, I've seen him shoot some nice takedowns. And so that's an interesting fight. I think Sandhagen's long as well. So that gives, not I think I know, that gives a different look to how O'Malley would be able to set certain things up and play that game. So they're both long, but I think that I honestly think that O'Malley will probably struggle with him a little bit. Just because I think Sandhagen can do different things like the leg kicks and I don't know. I tend to favor Sandhagen, to be honest with you. I think he's very tidy with his Muay Thai and he's got, let me just see something. I want to see something here. Yeah. It's an interesting one. It's a very, very interesting one. I'd love to do a breakdown closer to the fight. Yeah, I'd love to do. He's definitely fought the better guys. He's lost to a lot of the better guys, but he's definitely fought the better guys. He's got the experience on his side. He's still relatively young. I'm talking about Sandhagen. He's 31 years old. I tend to favor Sandhagen, I think that a lot of their games is built around being the longer, taller guy. But I think that Sandhagen can kind of stay at that range and kick. And that makes Sean move his legs more. That makes Sean not just be able to set up. He can switch when Sean switches. So I think that I do think that that's going to be the... Yeah, I pick Sandhagen, to be honest with you. SG says, Charles is a deceptively big guy for lightweight. I've trained with Charles. Just a second, guys. Hello, beautiful girl. Come here. See hello. See hello. Hello. Oh, hello. Okay. Let me take you back downstairs. Just a second, guys. Now, I've trained with Charles. I spent a fair bit of time with Charles in Brazil when he was about 18, 19. And he's the same like kind of build as me, but a bigger guy, like bigger hands, bigger head. Got a few, I got a whole bunch of photos with him. Yeah, he's got bigger hands, like thicker wrists. He's a bigger guy than me for sure. And I'm like 6 foot. And right now I'm walking away. I'm pretty fat, but not fat, but I'm not like in shape or anything. And I'm about 83 kilos. And he's bigger than me for sure. Like just a bigger frame guy. Homeless in America says O'Malley has 3-inch reach advantage over Sandhagen. Yeah, but Sandhagen kicks a lot, dude. That's why I don't think that range is the same. You know, I don't think that he enjoys, because when people talk about reach and everything, don't forget, like, it's not the same, because it's not boxing. You know, it's not just like, this is not the same when you have a guy that kicks, that's comfortable in the clinch, that's going to throw knees up the middle. It's a different type of range. I'd have to do a full breakdown for them. SG says, did you see the Cedric Doumbé fight? Yeah, I did. I had Cedric on my podcast. We had an episode with him. He's a champion, you know. He's a character as well. So, yeah. Pepgard says, the problem is Charles accepts the ground too much. He reminds me of Prime Tony, who didn't mind going to the floor, but Islam is too sound in the ground game, and that would be Charles' downfall again. I agree with you. That's why I say to you, there's a clear path to victory for Islam, being that he can out-grapple Charles in as far as he can take him down and hold him down. Can you give your honest opinion? Do you think Costa refused to fight Rob because the likelihood of him winning that fight would be low, and fighting Khamzat has more financial gains? I don't know. I don't think Costa beats Rob. I don't think that at all. I don't know why I can't say why he took the fight or not. I have no idea. I'd be speculating and just whatever. And I have no idea. When you say financial gains, I have no idea of Khamzat's contract. If he's not the main event, you know what I mean? I don't know that he gets paid more to fight Khamzat. Generally, you don't in those sort of cases. He's not going to get paid more. I have no idea. Do I think Costa beats Rob? No. I think like Rob handedly beats Costa. I don't see anything that Costa does that's better than Rob. Having said that, it's an enigma to me what's going to happen between Khamzat and Costa, because I haven't seen Costa as of late do something really impressive at middleweight. Matter of fact, other than the Romero fight, and that Romero, in fairness, was already not the same Romero by this stage. But other than that Romero fight, I haven't seen Costa do anything really, really crazy at middleweight. He's super tough and he can take a beating, but that's probably his biggest attribute. And he's got power up close. But other than that, I don't see that. You know, but I haven't seen Khamzat against one of the upper echelon guys in the UFC at middleweight, being Costa, right? When I say that, I'm not saying he's not good. I'm just saying that's the biggest attribute. He's a big, strong, mean dude that can take a shot and give one. You know what I mean? And he's made a living off doing that. But when you're fighting these upper level guys, I don't see him beating them like that. No. So no, I don't see him beating Rob, but I don't see him beating Khamzat either. Homeless in America says 9-second KO. I don't know what that. Oh, about Cedric. Max Jamil says, what do you make of the lawsuit being dismissed between Mark Hunt, UFC, and Brock Lesnar? The thing is, man, I don't know the ins and outs of the lawsuit, right? You only know what you're repeating and what people are saying. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what exactly happened, and I don't know what it is. But I do know that it's very hard to win a lawsuit against someone that has a lot more money than you. Do you know what I mean? Whilst you do see, you know, people go, no, he sued this place and he won, he got this. You see that, you hear of the big wins, but you don't hear of the people that are just buried under litigation for years. You know what I mean? Like, that are just, you know, the UFC has got unlimited amounts of money, you know, and there's unlimited amounts of ways of preparing their defense. Do you know what I mean? Which may be legitimate, like as in not legit, it may be legitimate, but they have their ways of preparing their defense, and they have all the money in the world to do that. So that's kind of what I think on that. I think it'd be very hard to go out and win a lawsuit against the UFC. A lot, I think, it's kind of like the Roman army, like they've been at war always, and they're very, very good at it. The UFC would have, these are some lawsuits that you know of. The UFC would have lots of lawsuits against it, or in situations where they're in legal battles with commissions, or trying to get into a state, or trying to break into a country, and da-da-da-da-da. So they're very, very skilled at doing this, So it's going to be very, very, very hard to beat them, even if it's right or wrong, Mario Gomez says, can a manager have too many fighters under him be a problem? Like Ali Abdelaziz having loads of fighters and them not wanting to fight each other. There's a lot of that. That's a big question, man, because there's a lot of issues revolving around that. And I think a big one is you have to go all the way back to the revenue split with the UFC. So if you look at it, the revenue split and what fighters earn is very low. You don't have a mandatory thing. So say, for example, if you sign with rugby league in Australia or in the NFL, there'd be like a mandatory minimum that you can earn. So it's very fucking clear, and at least here in Australia, there's stipulations and laws and policies around how much a manager can charge to represent the players, because also the managers know that the guys are going to get minimum this, they can get maximum that. And so these are the percentages you can charge. It's very, 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 it's very clear, whereas with the UFC, you have to understand, like, you can't have 2-3 guys if you really want to make a living off it, because not everyone's going to win a title. Like you could have a guy that looks great and you gamble on him, and this happens a lot. And whilst a lot of the managers and the coaches they overcharged the fighters of this and that, but a lot of the managers, man, and a lot of the coaches have spent shit tons of money and time on fighters that went nowhere, or fighters that when they get to a certain point, they fuck off. They go to another manager, they go to another coach. So it's very hard, man. It's not, you can't just look at it, as a silo. It doesn't exist in a silo of the human experience. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of factors involved with that. So a guy like Ali Abdelaziz, not that I'm an Ali Abdelaziz fan, I'm not sitting here fucking thing, but he's going to have as many fighters as he can, to take a percentage of as many fighters as he can, to make as much money as he can. And he's going to do the best deals that he can for his fighters, because it's going to give him the best money. So them not wanting to fight each other, it's very, very different. There's more chance of that happening with coaches that have a gym that there's lots of fighters in that gym than a manager, because if I'm a manager, I can manage someone here in Sweden and in Las Vegas, and the guys don't even know each other. Is it a conflict of interest? It starts to get weird, if you want my honest opinion, not because of the fighters not fighting each other, because there's, I don't want to say a collusion, but I definitely win if both my guys fight for the title and I'm managing them. Fuck, I have it does seem strange. You know what I mean? That's all I'm going to say. Homeless says, that's bullshit. Should have never been allowed to fight. You're talking about the Brock thing. What do I think, or what do I think about the lawsuit? What do I think about dudes? Like, it's fucking ridiculous that he's allowed to fight, on steroids. You know what I mean? Like, and then if you say to me, but by the time they did the test, then there's a fucking massive hole in the test. That means you're not going to catch guys fighting. So there's, you know what I mean? You're not going to catch them anyways until after said event, and then we're going to fight. And so you're letting guys fight that are going to be on steroids. So, but then we can go round and round and round on the legal loops. So it's just, what I think is what I think. It's not necessarily right or wrong. Original Sin says, Coach Fab, you are surrounded by Asians. How is it like to marry an Asian and having daughters who look like her mother rather than more Latino? It's funny, man, because I got a son as well. So I got 3 kids and they all look Asian. My father-in-law's staying with me at the moment. He's like the Prince of Central Asia. My mother-in-law stays with us a lot. She's very Asian as well. It's just funny, man, because I wake up and everyone's Asian. And then sometimes I'm like in the street or something and I see like Chinese people and I have like almost like an affinity to them, and then I realize I look nothing like you. So as they don't know this other part about me. So it's very funny, man. It's very, very funny, man. I'll be honest with you. It's a very, very funny thing. It's an amusing thing. My mom, my mom's a character, you know, and she'll babysit the kids a lot. You know, they spend a lot of time with my mom as well. And my mom will be at a playground, and if people like, I don't care. Like, I find it cool. Like, if somebody's like, "Oh, where's the mum from?" I'll tell them, you know, blah 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 blah. It's not a big thing to me. It's actually cool. That's what they look like, you know. But my mum gets offended if somebody asks. You know, it's just like, yeah, it's just a funny thing. Homeless says, I don't know kilos. I usually just add 100 pounds to the kilogram weight, and I think that's close enough. Jordan says, if Shavkat fights Wonderboy like he did with Jeff Neal, he gets destroyed. He didn't move his head, and a counter strike like Wonderboy will light him up. Such a good matchup for Wonderboy. Yeah, but I don't know. I agree with you. Shavkat gets hit more than I like. That's something that I don't like with Shavkat. But I don't know that Wonderboy would be able to keep Shavkat off him either, because Shavkat can grapple very, very, very well. Yeah, I don't know. But I do agree with you. Yeah, he doesn't move his head laterally enough for my liking. That's my take on that. I agree with you on that, Jordan. Hassan says, Charles looked huge compared to Dustin. Charles is a big boy. Like I said to you, he's a big fucking guy. Homeless says, Charles and Islam are roughly the same size, except Charles has a 4-inch reach advantage. Both are huge lightweights. Yes, and Charles used to fight at featherweight. You know, Charles is long, man. He's long and he's very crafty and he's very tricky on the ground. He's very, very, very good grappler. Max Jamil says, Costa pressure versus Romero and Rockhold was crazy. It would be interesting to see who backs up, considering Khamzat likes to come forward. It's hard, though, to come forward like that on someone like a Khamzat, I think, with the grappling ability that Khamzat does have. Romero, by the time Costa fought him, was no longer shooting the way that he did. The last time that Romero really put his wrestling like that into a fight was the first fight with Rob. After that, wrestler Romero was gone. That didn't happen anymore. He wasn't really wrestling him like that. I think that the problem with Costa coming forward like that, and Rockhold, in fairness, by the time he fought Costa, was there'd been a long time between drinks. He'd suffered some big knockouts, and it was at altitude. And Costa still didn't finish him. So that's something I don't like about Costa. I don't know how he's going to be able to handle that, because if he comes forward, coming forward like a maniac, he's going to enter the grappling exchanges with Khamzat, and that's what Khamzat wants. Khamzat can do that. Costa can get up once. Costa can get up twice, and Khamzat will continue to try and grapple him. That's how I think the fight will go. And then Khamzat himself hits pretty fucking hard, and he's long as well. So it's not, I think that's going to be a problem for him. I don't think he's going to be able to come forward the way that he did against Khamzat. I mean, against Romero or Rockhold. Sufimi says, what are your thoughts on Colby getting a title shot? He has a history of fighting out of prime fighters in their late 30s and early 40s and on losing streaks and gets praised for losing against Usman. I think Colby's a very good fighter. I think Colby's getting up there in age. I think Colby, there's probably better fights to have made, but it is what it is. What I think of the matchup is irrelevant, because the UFC does matchups that they want to make, that they want to do, that they think is going to give them the most money, which they're running a business, and I can't fault them on that. But I think Colby's a much better fighter than people give him credit for. I don't think he beats Leon. This is just my opinion. Whilst Leon's a very good grappler, Colby has to do that to him for 5 rounds. And some of the stuff that Leon does, I think it's hard to keep doing that to him and not get cut. I think Leon's going to cut him, to be honest with you. Colby's a bit of a monster, the way he can just keep coming forward, but Leon's a young, strong guy with very good grappling ability. It wasn't evident in his fight against Usman the first time, just because I think it was at altitude. Colby just keeps coming though and turns it into a folk style wrestling match. I just don't see him being able to do that to Leon without suffering. I don't know that Leon will stop him, but without suffering cuts and without suffering shots to the body and whatnot. I think Leon's going to be able to do that. Leon's a big guy too, big rangy guy. So I see Leon hitting him with that elbow that he likes to throw and just cutting Colby and probably changing the way that the fight goes out. Leon's a very good grappler. Madara Uchiha says, how would a prime Tony versus a prime Khabib have gone, like in 2017 or 2018 when they were supposed to fight? Tony's pressure elbows versus Khabib's ironclad wrestling, single track minded to smash. I've seen Danny Castillo around that time, if not a bit before, held Tony Ferguson down. There's been a lot of guys that have held Ferguson down. You know what I mean? Kevin Lee held him down. Kevin Lee fought him with Staff as well. I think that had he not fought him with Staff, I think Kevin Lee would have beat him. People don't understand, like the Staff like that, when you're on antibiotics, it affects your fitness. It affects your cardio big time. And even if he hadn't beat him, just the fact that he was able to hold him down the way that he did, and people have held Tony down, even at his peak, is tailor-made for someone like Khabib. Khabib would have got him down. I think I don't think Tony Ferguson is that bad of a matchup for Khabib. I don't think so. Homeless in America says Khamzat lost to lightweight Burns. Arguably, I think you're just trying to fight there, man, because welterweight Burns is never going to make lightweight again. He's a completely different guy. Like, he looks completely different. He's just completely different guy, Burns. And I think Burns is, in my opinion, one of the hardest matchups in any division for Khamzat, because he hits hard. And he's got very, very, very good jiu-jitsu. Not okay jiu-jitsu, talking about world champion jiu-jitsu that can apply it in MMA, you know. So I think that's a very difficult matchup in that. And then Khamzat, to me, showed some really good moments, and in the fact that he could still take that fight to the ground, and he did keep it standing, and he did hurt Burns. And I don't think it was a close but very clear fight to me that Khamzat won. I don't think that Paulo Paulo doesn't have that threat. He's got his own threats. You know, he's got his own threats against Khamzat. It's victory isn't a foregone conclusion for Khamzat, but I don't think that outside of the first 7 minutes, which is hard to get through, 7 minutes is a long time, but the first 7 minutes of Paulo Costa and the power that he has and the strength that he has, after that, he does not have, if he gets put on his back, it's going to be a fucking problem for him. It's going to be either a very long or a very short night. He's not going to submit Khamzat. Like, he might catch him in a guillotine, catch him in a guillotine or something from his back, maybe. But as far as like throwing up arm bars and triangles and catching Khamzat out and sweeping him like a Burns could do, it's not going to fucking happen. Nathan Gorman says, if Volk gets a rematch with Islam, what would he have to do differently to win rounds on the scorecards, considering how good Islam is at winning rounds? Nathan Gorman, you are a clever fellow, because a lot of people don't understand. It's not one fight. It's like, if it's 5 rounds, it's 5 like matches, and you got to win 3 out of those matches to win it. This is what people don't get. You know, this is the scoring system you have. This is a 10-point must system. And Islam is very, very good at that, exactly like you said. So you got to start putting rounds in your favor. I think Alex did really well. You know, I think that I don't know that they have to do something massively different. I think that they both surprised each other. Like, Alex's grappling and his grappling defense was probably better than Islam would have thought. And I think that once again, Islam's striking probably surprised Alex a little bit as well. which I think he did with Charles. So this is going to be interesting to see how Charles adjusts his own striking to match Islam's, or to match. He might not be better than Islam. It's just better than he thought, So I think that will be interesting in the rematch. Homeless in America says Shavkat will wrestle Wonder Boy. I would imagine so. That's what I was thinking before. I would imagine that he'd have to wrestle him. I don't think that he's gonna think. SG says Central Chinese cuisine is very different from the rest of the mainland. It is, but my wife's family is actually from Inner Mongolia. They're like Chinese Russian background. They're on like the triple border between Mongolia, Russia, and China. So they look very like Central Asian, not Central Chinese. Death Note says Adesanya. My kids look more like that Shavkat and that, like that kind of Central Asian people. Even my wife's father and that look very Central Asian. Death Note says Adesanya pleaded guilty to drink drive. Did that impact the fight with Strickland, not taking him seriously like Jones versus Gustafsson? Again, I can't speculate on either one of those things, right? But this is the thing that I'm going to say to you. Whatever happens, when you get in the fight, it's the fight. That's it. So if you didn't take your opponent seriously, that's not like you lost the fucking fight, dude. You know what I mean? Like that's like me saying I think I should have fought in Southpaw, but I fought in Orthodox because I thought, no, it doesn't matter. You lost. I can't say about Jones or any like when people speculate on that, like you go, well, was this the first time he drunk before a fight? I don't think so. Was this the first time was that the first time Jones partied or drank before a fight? I don't think so. It's only when you lose that the shit that you've always been doing comes to the forefront. Like people will go, oh, fucking whatever. I don't know. Like I've been going out, and I've got to stop going out, but you've been winning the whole time. It's only when you lost. And same thing, man. People have a fight camp and then they have a fight team that they've been with together for X amount of time. They lose and then they change. And I think but you were doing the same, like, what are you fucking talking about? So you got to believe in the process, I believe, and losing is part of the process. I thought that Adesanya looked like Adesanya. Like I watch back my reaction, right? Look at when the fight companion. I'm not looking at that fight with Adesanya and Strickland going, oh fuck, Adesanya looks off. I didn't. Like if you look at my reaction, I'm like, well, fuck Adesanya, man. Adesanya, da. He's looking really, really good, but fucking Sean put it on him, dude. And then as the fight progressed, Sean looked good. But don't kid yourself, dude. If Sean didn't drop him in that first round and Adesanya was a little bit more active and Adesanya wins the first and wins the second round, that fight's a completely different fight. You have to understand all of that. And then everyone will be saying, mate, Adesanya's too elusive. Too elusive. Sean fought a stupid fight. That's what everyone will be saying. Sean should have tried to grapple him. I said before the fight, if Sean wins, and I fucking said it, and this is the thing, if Sean wins this fight, it'll be because he won a round early and then picked the rounds off at the end and did so striking. And he did so with his striking, not with his grappling. I said this before the fight, and that's exactly what happened. I didn't say that's what will happen because Adesanya is very good. So I'm going to skip a few. Homeless in America says Burns has Oliveira level jiu-jitsu. His jiu-jitsu is like, as far as accomplishments, it's higher level than Oliveira's, like significantly higher. He's got to win over Kron Gracie in jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like, so as far as that, it's higher level. So I'm going to skip a few. Matt says every day is different. Every fight is different. You got to show up on the day. Yeah, 100%, man. You can't. It is what it is. Like I'll definitely pay and watch the fight again with Adesanya and Strickland. It wasn't. I'm not even Adesanya fanboy. But it wasn't like Strickland dominated and got the win. but he didn't bash him from pillar to post either. But it was a very fucking clear and dominant win for Strickland. It wasn't like Adesanya got beaten to a fucking pulp every fucking round. 10-8, 10-8, 10-8, 10-8. It wasn't the case. Homeless in America says, why don't more people watch these lives? These are great. Guys, share, like, and subscribe, please. One Willow says, hey, Fab, greetings from Croatia. Kako si. Pep Guard says, does the UFC want Khamzat to win because he's a Muslim, and since Khabib left, they need a star in the Middle East region to replace Khabib? Again, I can't speculate on that. I don't know. Islam's Muslim. There's a lot of Muslim fighters, you know. But he's definitely a star, is Khamzat. Matt says, Sean's pressure was amazing. Philly showed defense and kept walking Izzy down. Yeah, he did a very good job. But I'll tell you this, if he had gotten knocked out, everyone would be saying that's the dumbest fucking thing to do. The Prohaska versus Pereira fight is going to be fireworks. I think so. I think Jiri is a fucking difficult person that can whack hard with a good kickboxing background. It's going to be a hard fight, man. That's a tough fight. I want to do a breakdown on that one too. So yeah, no, it's been very good, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the like button. Tell your friends about it. Share it. Let everyone know. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys this weekend when we watch the fights. Take care.